name's Rachel and today we're talking about NIGHTBANE, which is the sequel to Lightlark by Alex Aster. I have a video on Lightlark, it is linked down below. I also have a video on Alex Aster if you don't know who that is. That's linked down below. This was a book that got a lot of buzz and conversation around it when it came out last year, and Lightlark was really bad. It was not a well-written book. It was poorly crafted in its prose and its construction of things like plot and character development. It was really, really poor. And unfortunately, I did not like the sequel either, for a different reason than the first. Well, not really a different, I mean, is it better than the first one? No. Although let's not forget how absolutely bonkers that first book was. The eggs thing, the ocean being soup, come on. So since the bar is so far down below hell itself at this point for this series, it's hard to outdo that. So this was at least not eggy. There were still eggs, not completely without eggs, but less eggs. And I have to also say a few things. I know that some people actually like this book, and that's okay. I'm happy for you. Reviews are subjective, so we don't need to come in here being like, you're jealous of Alex Aster. That's weird. Stop doing that. The line that she wrote where it says she ran like she was running from something, in fact this entire paragraph, is so poor and so badly written. I can't say that this is something that I am envious of. No, I also don't think that this is typical YA writing. I review a lot of middle grade and YA and adult books, and this is just subpar, period. This is not normal YA writing. This is unpolished, poorly constructed, and assumedly unedited line work. I do think, again, though, reviews are subjective, and the best evidence of that is for me to say that there are things in the sequel book, NIGHTBANE, that I actually like on paper, outside of this book at least. I like shadow magic. I like the trope where it's like you have to remember this entire relationship that you had with somebody. It's hard for me to say that this is 1 star in the same way that the first book was 1 star, because I rate them 1 star for different reasons. Even though the shadow magic and the recovering memory things weren't done well here, those things are still things that I like just in general. So for those reasons, my reading experience was not as bad as the first one, where I don't like anything about it, but this has one of the most retconny plots that I've ever seen, and readers deserve better. I think it's lazy, so yes, I did give it 1 star. I am not a computer analyzing books though. I am a person, and if you like this book, bully for you. I am just a person with preferences and snark. There are books I like, this series just is not one, and I will tell you why. Despite being subjective as far as reviews go, I've been trying to do more detailed and therefore more helpful reviews, and a way that I have been doing this is by using advice given by writers in writing classes, but then flipping it around to use that advice to see if a story met that advice, and then reviewing based on that. Particularly, I've been using Skillshare to do this, and I really loved Daniel Jose Older's class. He has 2 classes. I enjoyed his class on writing standout opening scenes. That really helped me review another book back in the summer, and I'm happy to say that Daniel Jose Older not only has that class, but he also has another class. I used it to help me write a positive review a couple months ago, and now I utilized it here to help me review a sequel, because reviewing a sequel is a little bit different than reviewing a first book in a series. This class has been so helpful in helping me learn how to write positive and negative reviews. It might seem weird using writing classes to then write reviews, but whether you're a writer or a reviewer, I think you can learn a lot from Skillshare classes on storytelling. Skillshare is the largest online learning community for creatives, and they have a wide depth and breadth of topics, everything from like illustration, photography, graphic design, marketing, music, and productivity, but also there's a ton of writing advice on there. There's so many classes, and I recommend these not just for writers, but also people learning how to write reviews and how to analyze a story. Even though I've been doing this for several years now, I'm still learning. They have authors teaching writing classes such as Saba Tahir and Daniel Jose Older, both of whom I've read from. Saba Tahir is one of my favorite authors. In Daniel Jose Older's class in Storytelling 101, he talks about the 4 C's, which is conflict, context, craft, and character. I took his advice on all these things and I flipped it to see if the story meets these standards, and not just individually, but did it marry these different elements, craft, character, context, and conflict, in a way that creates a successful story. If you don't know, Skillshare Skillshare is an on-demand platform, and it has stackable lessons so members can learn at their own pace no matter what your skill level is. So whether you want to learn the basics of watercolor painting or how to start your own creative business, Skillshare has classes to take you from beginner to pro, alongside a supportive community that you can chit chat with. And for those of us who are in the author and the review community, the bookish community at large, we're very community oriented, but a lot of us are running small businesses. They have classes on freelancing and marketing and entrepreneurship and social media. The first 500 people to use my link down below will get a 1-month free trial of Skillshare. So whatever your craft is that you're looking to hone, whether it's writing or reviewing or marketing your book or whatever it is that you creatively dabble in, click that link below to get your 1 month free of Skillshare. And thank you so much to Skillshare for sponsoring today's video. And also shout out Daniel Jose Older because he is carrying me through this review. So I'm going to go over the 4 C's, and I'm also going to just go like through the whole book and give my reactions. But first I want to talk about, to sort of give you some context, what the questions were I had in Lightlark that did not get answered in the sequel. First and foremost, you know I'm gonna ask, what in God's name does a star stick look like? I'm still imagining this, which rest in peace to my children's bubble wand. They had to go in the trash. Not the children, the bubble wand. Another question I had asked is, at the beginning of Lightlark, is are we going to subvert this sort of stereotyping of indigenous people? In this case, particularly the wildling realm where Alex Astor's main character in this book is from Isla. By the way, her name in fact is pronounced Isla according to the audiobook. So Isla Crown, who seems to be a self-insert for Alex Astor herself, who says that she has like indigenous Colombian heritage. She is part of the wildling realm, which seems to be like indigenous people. And they are called by the other realms savages. So my question in Lightlark was, are we going to subvert that stereotype or are we going to lean in? And the question got answered in this book, and the answer is we lean in. So my unanswered question is why? Why did we do that? My question at the end of Lightlark was, why did Grimm erase Isla's memories of them being in a relationship just to hit on her for the entirety of the games? I don't have an answer for that, having read the sequel. An actual question I have is, why are there so many plot devices of convenience in book 1? They still exist in book 2, they're not as heavy, but why did we do that? Why didn't we edit that down? The biggest and most important question that I have is why Alex Astor, her editor, her publisher, they joined forces to write an entire book that is one giant retcon, and that is what this is. I cannot believe, I actually started to think, you know what, maybe I, because I said this line when I was reviewing the first book. Also, there was like a hint that Grimdark is somehow holding back something worse than the curses, and it's like, you know what's worse than the curses? Reading this fucking book. And I started to think, did I misimagine that? Did I misremember that? Maybe I made that up. Maybe that didn't happen. See, the question throughout NIGHTBANE is why Grimm, who is back at Nightshade Realm, is coming at to attack Lightlark. Why is he coming to attack Lightlark? Why is he sending these dark creatures called the Drex to attack Lightlark? And they never actually ask Grimm. They could summon him and just ask, or he could just show up and just say it. And Isla is trying and failing to figure this answer out, only to time and time again just think it's just because Grimm is a monster. And all of this makes no sense because this was already answered in book 1. The answer as to why Grimm is doing this is answered in book 1, and it's answered by Oro, who tells Isla, and both of them conveniently forget this for this entire book. Except no, they didn't forget, because they're not real people. The person who forgot she wrote that was Alex Astor. Page 167, and shout out to Bimbupo on Instagram and Buggy on TikTok for helping me find the exact quotes, because I couldn't remember the exact quotes for the life of me and I couldn't remember page numbers. Here's what it says in the book. This is Oro speaking. All of our realms are connected. You can't begin to understand the consequences of losing one of them. Even if we do know for certain the offense that needed to be committed again, talking about the curse, the decision of who needs to die would be nearly impossible. That, more than anything else, is why the curses haven't been broken until now. Isla didn't know why she spoke her next few words, but she needed clarity. Answer. Oh my god, this isn't the point, but I just want to point out here that is so poorly written. She didn't know why she spoke her next few words, but she needed clarity and answers. Okay, so you do know why you're speaking them. You need answers. What? 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 She says to him, why not just kill Grimm then? She wondered, even as the thought made her insides twist with a surprising amount of pain. Even if he seemed to have forgotten about her, he's not part of Lightlark. Isn't he the obvious choice? Oro. His smile was mocking, cruel. I can't, he said. Perhaps it was because he was so angry, so eager to throw in her face how little she understood. He told her more than she expected he would. This is the line. Grimm is the only thing standing between us and a greater danger you can't even begin to fathom. I'll let you sit with that for a second. Greater danger? What could be more dangerous than the Nightshade, or the curses, or the Centennial? That's a great question, Isla. It's a great question that you brought up and then conveniently forgot for an entire book. And this gets brought up again 30 pages later from Isla to Grimm. I'm not your enemy, he said, voice softer than she had ever heard it. Then why couldn't she trust him? Why was he pushing her away? Prove it, she dared. Tell me something. Anything. He didn't actually mean anything, apparently, because he immediately says he will not give her the next following information. She remembered the king's words in the forest, the king being Oro. The reason he had given her for why the rest of the rulers hadn't simply decided to kill Grimm to fulfill the prophecy. This implies that not just Oro knew this information, but all of the rulers, except Isla, knew this information. Sit with that for a second. Oro said that you are the only thing standing between us and a greater danger. What was he talking about? Grimm didn't look particularly surprised by her question, though he took his time answering it. There are worse things in this world than the curses or even me. Like what? She says. He shook his head. I could tell you, but it would only distract you. Believe me, right now, the curses are the more pressing danger. Isla scowled. Who was he to decide what would and wouldn't distract her? What was too much to know? Still, she could tell by his tone that he wouldn't budge. So my question is, if Oro definitely knew this information midway through book 1, told it to Isla, and also implied that all the rest of the rulers knew this information, which would include Celeste, but also Azul and Cleo, if that is true, and her and Grimm also had a follow-up conversation where he didn't deign to tell her because he was focused on the curses, why do they spend the entirety of this book acting like those two conversations never happened? And they don't know that information. They are in council with Azul and Cleo multiple times. This could have been brought up by Azul, Cleo, or Oro again and Isla again, or even Grimm himself. And then the entire plot of this book would be moot. Why wasn't it brought up by anybody? I can answer this question. It's quite obviously because Alex Astor and her editor forgot. Maybe Grimm took Alex's memories away, which makes sense again because Isla Crown seems to be a self-insert for Alex Astor. It is for this reason alone I have to ignore anything I liked about the book. Even if I did like a little bit of the shadow magic, it doesn't matter. I have to give this book 1 star. The author and editor should be able to remember. If I can remember as the reader, a person who read this book 1 time and was not carefully reading it in order to help make a new draft of it, and certainly was not the person who said they worked on it for over a decade, they should be able to remember that this happened in book 1 and not write an entire book 2 that has a mystery question. Why is Grimm doing all this and where are the Drecks coming from and why is he weaponizing this? That the same people asking that question already answered in book 1. This right here is why you need multiple good beta readers that care more about quality product than feeding your ego. These books are what happen when you make things up as you go along and then you have no one else really looking over your work with a close eye telling you where to go when you redraft that work. This was written to be sold, not to be good. I know that sounds harsh, but I think that readers deserve better than lazy writing like this. Also, I have one last question. I'm sorry, I didn't bring this up. Why are the list of powers so wonky? Oro has every power, and then Grimm has the most random set of powers that you can possibly imagine. Like, Oro has everybody's powers because he's king of Lightlark, so he has all of the rulers' powers, but then Grimm is just overpowered for no reason, so he can manipulate shadows, feel flashes of emotions, spin curses, portal wherever, use mirrors to communicate, sense curses. What does this say? I made an excerpt. Open a black hole that would swallow the beach. I could turn the sea dark as ink and kill everything inside of it. I could demolish the castle brick by brick from where we stand. I could take you back to Nightshade lands with me right now. Why does he have the most random list of powers? And then Isla, because she has wildling power, but then her dad was a Nightshade, she also has Nightshade power, but then her and Celeste used that double-sided needle and the bond maker, and she had to kill Celeste and steal all of her powers, so now she has starling powers, kind of. It's just so ridiculous. It's just so much and so ridiculous all at once. Actually, this is a good place for me to go into the 4 C's of Storytelling 101, and then I will give you a rundown of what happened in Nightbane and my thoughts on it. Okay, so in Daniel Jose Older's class Storytelling 101 on Skillshare, he talks about the 4 C's, and again, those are character, context, craft, and conflict. Okay, so we'll start with characters. He says, you don't have to make people likable, you just have to make people care about your characters. I do not care about any of these characters. I did not form a single emotional connection to any of them, and you don't have to exactly form an emotional connection like he says. You just have to make them care about the character's motivations and not just even about the person themselves. And maybe this would have been better if it was dual POV between Isla and Grimm, or even Isla and Oro, so that we could actually see why they love each other. But I had no idea that Isla and Oro were going to be love interests until the end of Lightlark, when all of a sudden they professed their love for each other. And I was like, I thought he was a stand-in father figure. I was picturing a 60-year-old man who like thought he could mentor her, and then all of a sudden they're like, we're in love. I'm like, since when? Since when? So it might have been easier to make this dual POV and then we could actually see what they love about each other, but why they love each other is so odd, and it doesn't really make sense, and it doesn't really sound like love. It just sounds like a forced thing to try to make a love triangle where there really isn't one. And it's not like Grimm is all that better in comparison, it's just that we actually have like an establishment of relationship between Grimm and Isla that is not there for Oro and Isla. All of their motivations are so wonky to me. Like, we just went over the Grimm's motivations thing. We knew in book 1 that he was motivated by this greater danger, and yet Isla and Oro completely forget this, and this informs their motivations because they are motivated by not knowing now what they knew in book 1, which is why Grimm is motivated to act the way he's acting. So you can already see that we have one pillar of this story falling apart just by not having good character motivations. Isla's motivations are not things that I think are like very normal to the circumstances. She's like motivated by the safety of Lightlark, which is odd to me, and she cares more about Lightlark than her own people, who she had been barred from having a relationship with by these like sort of abusive caretakers. She never really properly deals with the fact that she was basically abused. Older suggests making character motivations known very quickly to the reader so that you make the reader care. Aster has not made the motivations of any of her characters understood, and therefore that's part of why this book fails. Their motivations in their relationship, their motivations in like the external issues and the internal issues, I don't really understand what motivates any of these people. That brings us to conflict, which Daniel Jose Older calls like the real building block of the story. Internal conflict for your character is, in this book, Alex went with the idea of like making Isla feel like, oh, I'm a monster, who could love me? When it comes to Oro, who's like the nice guy, and she's like, also everybody betrays me, which is not exactly true. Like Grimm, I don't really feel like betrayed her. Celeste betrayed her, but I don't think that Grimm did. It's not really a satisfying internal conflict to watch and like watch develop because it doesn't really feel connected to the plot, and I think that that's because we never really married the internal conflicts and the external conflicts, and the external conflict is really just like the safety of the people of Lightlark and like fuck the new lands, I guess. I don't really get it. The third C is context, and the questions Daniel Jose Older asks about context are, what are the rules of this world and who has the power? That's a really great question. As I said in the last video, this book is like, whose line is it anyway? Everything's made up and the points don't matter. There are no rules. The rules shift with the tides of Alex's feelings. You don't really have anything nailed down, and anytime she like needs a new thing, she doesn't stick to the rules that she's already created. She just adds another power or another very convenient magical device into the story, and then does not think about how that contradicts with the previous things that she has written. Who has the power? Well, as we established, all 3 of our like top characters are just majorly overpowered, and assumedly we're just going to keep adding powers to their roster because there's really no rules, and Alex just makes things up as she goes. And that leads us to the 4th C, see craft, which is, there is none. Not here, at least. Craft holds all the 4 C's together, according to Older, and that's why this series is not good, because your craft is how you execute writing internal and external conflict and marrying them together, how you create context and how you maintain those rules that you created, and how you are writing your characters and their motivations and marrying that with the conflicts and setting that up against the context of who has the power to create like trouble for your characters, all with the cherry on top of some of the worst writing that I have seen. Again, this is a really bad paragraph, and this kind of crap continues into the second book. Some of these lines are just ridiculous. It's actually a lot easier to do the 4 C's of reviewing of storytelling in a review when I like the book, because I can list you a bunch of examples of how much I love character motivation and smart ways that the author marries internal and external conflict, and what rules are causing so much trouble, like what the context of the world is, the rules that the author has created to cause trouble for our main characters, and like craft, lines that took my breath away. Like, it's a lot easier actually using this template to review things positively, whereas when it's a negative review, I'm just like, the conflict doesn't make sense, the characters are crap, the context there is none, and the craft is nonsensical and bad. It's just bad writing. So like I had way more fun doing a positive review with the 4 C's than I did with this. Alright, so now I'm gonna get into the part where I go through the book line by line and talk about how bad it was from top to bottom. Okay, I keep having to film in sections because I have a lot going on this month. I've got kids, I've got IEP meetings, I've got specialist meetings, also I had a fucking kidney infection. So it's been a lot. So I keep having to film in sections, I'm sorry. Alright, so we start out and Isla, fuck, I can't believe I have to say Isla Crown. Can I call her Isla? I'm sorry. I don't want to sit here and say the word Isla. Just ridiculous. I'm calling her Isla. Isla Crown is coming off of just having killed her best friend. Do we deal with that in a way that I feel like is emotionally normal? No, I do not. Her and Oro apparently love each other now, and they have a lot of talks about them loving each other and what that means in ways that don't make any fucking sense to me. I don't think they actually love each other. I think that, again, this is a poorly written love triangle where we're just trying to make a dramatic issue for the characters to deal with, but even like it feels like even the author does not really feel the chemistry between these two characters, because she's just writing to get to the part where Isla chooses Grimm. So it's really stupid. Isla sort of like goes on and on about how sad she is internally for like half a second. Though she hadn't known what that love was, she had loved her guardians. Her guardians were told by Celeste, her former friend who she killed, to murder her parents. And then she exiled those guardians. But they were abusive, so like I would have gotten away from them and then exiled them immediately anyway. So I don't know. She had loved Celeste. She had at some point loved Grimm. Ah yes, Grimm, who took her memories away. So Oro says to Isla Crown, he won't stop until he has you, talking about Grimm. And I'm like, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? I'm just gonna keep bringing this up for the entire video because I'm so mad at being retconned like this. You said in the last book that he is privy to knowledge, holding back something that she can't even possibly imagine. And that's what motivates him. But now what's motivating him, you just forgot, and now what's motivating him is Isla? What are you talking about? What are you talking about? And Isla's like, I chose you. He feels betrayed. He might not even care about me anymore. Oro didn't look convinced. Even if he did, do you think he would start a war over me and risk his own people? That's a great question. It's a shame that we forget about this question and don't interrogate it for longer to think, you know what? Maybe Grimm wouldn't do that to his whole people. Maybe that doesn't actually make sense. Maybe him coming after them, coming back to Lightlark, has something or other to do with that information that Oro conveniently forgot, and so did Isla. Maybe so. Who knows? He's like, Isla, you need to train because you have new powers now, because she has the Starling powers because she used the bond maker with Celeste and stole all of Celeste's powers and killed her. And it says training had been hammered into her like gemstones into a blade's hilt. It was a part of her very essence. This just goes to show like how the writing, this series is so weird because it feels like the way things are conveyed, it is in a way that you would speak to like a middle grade audience, but then we also have spicy scenes, so this feels like new adult audience, it's not that spicy. I'm just saying it's more than I think like certain people would be comfortable giving to a teenager. It's all over the place. Those descriptions are just an example of how. Isla's like, I don't have time to train. I have to get back to the wildlings, because Lightlark is separate from the new land, and the wildlings, her people who she's in charge of, don't live on Lightlark. They all live in the wildling realm. It also brings up how Oro has a flare, which is he knows when people are lying. And flares are only supposed to be for rulers, like a special extra cherry on top power that they get. But this book retcons that too, because because Alex Astor was like, oh shit, I need to figure out a way that it makes sense for Isla to have a flare from her dad, who was not a royal, because her mom was the royal. So I'm just gonna say that other people can have flares too, and it's just rare. Okay, sure. And this book just like sets us up to just feel bad for Oro all the time in a way that just feels like very disingenuous, because oh no, his whole family's dead, he's all alone, he's the king of Lightlark, he has all the power, he was grumpy because Isla was a liar because she had to lie for her people, and he thought she would choose Grimm and she chose him, and it's like very like nice guy finishes last, finally gets the girl in a way that makes me just not like it. Well, his flair is he can tell when people are lying. Of course it is, as if he needs any more power on top of the enormous amount of power that he already has. He literally has every other ruler's power. I don't fucking know. So he can sense lies, and she asks him, do the lies hurt? And he says, it depends on who's telling them. I'm like, stop with the dramatics. It's so stupid. So then it says, the idea that her lies had hurt him inexplicably made her hurt as well. Was that what it meant to love someone? She had lied to him throughout the centennial, but he had never lied to her. She knew that for certain. He was the only person she trusted in the world, though she realized trusting anyone after what had happened was astronomically foolish. Was that love? What do you mean, was that love? You guys haven't figured out how and why it is you love each other yet? You just know you do? I don't get it. I don't know. I've been with the same dude since I was in high school, so maybe I'm just out of touch. But like, I can write a whole book on the time between me dating Carlos and me being in love with Carlos, so I don't know. And what the difference is. So, okay. Of course, we get a lot of like the typical dress descriptions and stuff, and Isla is always like being tailored into fabulous new clothes, and she's like, make me look like a sword, one that's more blood than blade. And I'm like, so you want to look like blood, but you want to look like a sword? Alright. So that ended up meaning that she gets a new red metal woven dress that whispered against the smooth floor, feeling almost like chainmail fighting against the silence shrinking the room. Cool. Oh yeah, and then it says that someone's spine curved towards the table as if emulating the top of a question mark. And I'm like, where's the editor? What's going on here? So they're in like a council meeting, and she's like, no, Grimm wouldn't kill innocent people to get to me. But then she keeps having these visions where it's her and it's Grimm, and there's like, there's a bunch of death and destruction, and children are screaming and dying, and this will come back later to haunt her, literally. Then they say, there's something else. Rebellion on the island is brewing. Our spies have heard the whispers carried along the wind. What do those whispers say? Their people are not pleased with how long it took to break the curses or our decisions as rulers. Which realm? Oro asks. All of them. The ones on Lightlark, at least. Yes, even Moonling. Which doesn't surprise me, because, I mean, Cleo's kind of a dick. At least she's a dick to Isla. I don't know, she kind of seems like a dick. So, I just don't really understand this. Like, you're just finding out now that rebellion has been brewing? Just now? That feels a little convenient. And then this guy, Soren, who I think is a Moonling, which who fucking cares, says, what you ask, which Isla is like, I'll be the ruler of Wildling and Starling. And he's like, that's impossible. One cannot be the ruler of two realms. Why not? Why the fuck not? Isn't the king of Lightlark the ruler of Lightlark, but also the ruler of Sunling? But then he has all the powers, like literally all the other rulers' powers? What's stopping Isla from having Starling and Wildling under her control? What do you mean? And instead of like acknowledging this, they just basically move on. They're like, well, anyway, Isla's going to be in charge. How would that work? Would she be coronated, officially announced as ruler? She already has the power. It would simply be a matter of ceremony. So what, you can't do the ceremony? Is that why you can't be the ruler of two realms? What do you mean? Isla's like, I will become the ruler that they need. And I'm like, wait, you like that Azul's kingdom, the Skyline kingdom, has a democracy. Why don't you just immediately offer like, hey, so I have to keep the power, I think, because if someone doesn't have the power, then the realm dies? Is that it? I don't understand. But I'll just sort of like be here holding this power so that everybody can stay cool, and you guys just run your own kingdom because I'm a complete stranger who has literally never lived outside my bedroom until now. So you guys know what you need. Let me know how I can help, right? And instead, her first inclination is like, let's coronate me and I'll become the ruler you need. What? Why? You haven't even talked to these people. What the fuck? And it does a lot of this language where it's like, Isla will become the person that everybody needs. Isla will be so good. And so when these moments happen when we're talking about how Isla feels like a monster, it feels so contrary to what is actually happening on the page, because I don't think, you know what, it's time for me to bring up Furyborn again. Furyborn is an excellent example, especially the sequel, of how a girl can want to do the right thing, try to do the right thing, still not be good enough, fail everybody's expectations, and actually become a monster. And that takes a lot of bravery to write that, because it means that you are going to make your character into somebody that not only the people in your book are going to hate, but a lot of readers are going to hate. It takes a lot of bravery to do that, and this is not that. Because accidentally killing people is not really you being a monster. Like, it was an accident. Killing people and trying to justify it while everybody who loves you is telling you you fucked up, you're wrong, and you still choosing to go down the wrong path, that's you being a monster. And that takes a lot of dedication to write, and you have to be very intentional about what you're doing there. This is not that. And somebody even tells her, you don't care about this island. How could you? You've only been here a few months. And I'm like, yeah, I fucking agree. Why do you care about the island? What, because some people helped you? Like, this is just so superficial. It pains me to read it. And even when she tries to write like offsetting the balance of things, like in the magic in particular, like Azul tells Isla, it's possible for transferring a power through a love bond or special relics. The cost is high. Permanently transferring abilities shortens a ruler's life significantly. How significantly, we don't know. But Isla, I don't even know why she doesn't like ask that. Like, well, how significantly? Would I still live to be old? Would I just not be immortal? Everybody around me is fucking 600 years old. Could I transfer my power and live to 200? Like, that feels like the right thing to do. Instead, we just like sort of gloss over this. She finally goes back to Wildling Realm to her people, and they tell her, oh, by the way, Tara was here and she told us that you broke the curses. You did what other rulers for centuries could not. How do you know that? She asked. And they're like, well, Tara was here. And Isla's like, but I banished her. And then this just sort of drops off until the very end, and it doesn't really get answered then either. So I don't know. Much confusion. Do not like. And Oro, of course, is always there to back her up, but in the most lazy way possible. Not on his part, but in the writing. It says, Oro didn't say anything. He didn't have to. She could read 1,000 words into his amber eyes, like, you can do this and I'm here for you. Why not just write a conversation? The thing is, like, I don't think she knows how to write between them because there is no chemistry and she's not sure where to start writing it. Isla Crown gets crowned a ruler of Starling instead of setting up a democracy for those people. And then they're all attacked. Lightlark is attacked by monsters, which we later find out are called Drex. Through a rip in the world, they come through and they are attacking people. And they have to fight off these Drex, okay? That's going to be important because, again, that was the thing that we were told, or was alluded to, that Grimm was worried about in book 1, and then we have conveniently forgotten that conversation happened. We now move on to a chapter called Enya, where we meet somebody whose name is Enya. Not Enya, but somebody who is basically Edna mode, which I don't say that because their names sound similar. I say that because it's like a person who is like, shows up, a woman who shows up and just like knows everything and is like friends with everybody and like gives off the vibe of being gay. It's Edna mode, but in Lightlark. She did turn out to be gay, by the way, I called it. And she goes to talk to Enya and she's like, we need help with my people. And Enya's like, I already know exactly what to do. What the fuck? And Enya's like, we need to portal with your star stick into Wildling Realm and help fix this territory of the wildlings. And it says, Ren proposed the wildlings be temporarily consolidated into a few key villages so help could be centralized. A vote was conducted. Every person agreed to host their neighbors for the time being. Many wildlings gave up their own homes for the volunteers for the week they planned to stay. Lightlark chefs chefs began teaching wildlings how to safely prepare meat. Now, I'm confused because later in the book it says that wildlings also have chefs. So why are there wildling chefs if they only eat hearts, but then also there's Lightlark chefs that have to come teach the people? Were the Lightlark chefs teaching the wildling chefs? Were the wildling chefs, I don't know, cutting up the people hearts into very specific patterns? Like, what does it mean to be a wildling chef, and why did that suddenly get erased when the Lightlark chefs showed up? By the way, they came to show them how to safely prepare meat. So I just want to point out here that again, we did not like subvert the stereotype of the indigenous population who is savages, the book's words, eating people, cannibalizing people. We didn't subvert that stereotype. We leaned into it, and we had the white people come from Lightlark to come teach the book's words, savages, how to safely prepare food that is not human hearts. So I don't know. I just don't think that's really appropriate. Isla is told, hey, why don't you have a animal companion? She's like, oh, I didn't think that was a thing. And they're like, yeah, wildlings have animal companions, so you should get one. She's like, oh, I just didn't think that I would have one. And they're like, well, you should. So they take her out to the forest, some of the wildlings, and they said, this is where we leave you. Perhaps it was Isla's eyes widening, but Ren, the other wildling, seemed to sense she needed more instruction. What do you mean? Of course she needs more instruction. You just stopped at the edge of the forest. They stop at the edge of the forest. Isla makes a face, assumedly like this, and that face is what tells the other wildling that Isla needs more instruction. What is this writing? You don't come back until morning. You don't come back without a bonded. What if none of the creatures wanted her? Ren handed her a bow and a single arrow. So there's a bunch of different creatures that come up, and one of them is a fucking like a bear with like horns, and I don't fucking know. And anyway, the creature that chooses her is Lynx, who is not a lynx. Lynx is the Black Panther. Yeah, so a Black Panther named a different kind of big cat is the one that chooses her, and it turns out that bonded Black Panther is the same Black Panther who bonded with her mom, which she didn't know, because she doesn't know anything about her parents, despite there being plenty of avenues for people to teach her about her parents. She never takes them up on it because there is no normal character acting like a real person in this. Okay, at Lightlark, there ends up being a crack in the world, right? Creatures pour out of it again, I think. One of the creatures comes at her and attacks her, but then seemingly recognizes her and leaves. And the starlings are like, she's in cahoots with Nightshade, this is a setup. And 54 people are injured. Then we find out that Cleo visited the Oracle. Did you remember there was an Oracle in Lightlark? Me neither. Completely forgot. Cleo visited the Oracle, who didn't unthaw because apparently the Oracle's frozen. I don't know. Everything's made up and nothing matters. And they ask Cleo, hey, by the way, if we go to war with Nightshade, who will you stand with, Cleo? And she's like, the winning side. And my question is, go to battle over what? Over what? Over Isla? Why are you guys just assuming that Grimm is coming to attack you at Lightlark using the Drex for some woman? What are you talking about? Also, Isla takes a bunch of healing elixir from the Newland wildlings, right? Her people, because the Lightlark has a wildling isle, like a miniature isle, but wildlings don't live there. The Vinderlands live there, who used to be wildlings. I don't know. This is so bonkers. Who even knows? Her people were starving. She took the elixir from them, but she needed it to heal the people who got attacked by the Drex, the monsters. I'm just confused why the healing elixir, though, can't also help with healing from like starvation for her people who are starving, who needed like the Lightlark chefs to come teach them how to cook meat and not just eat people's hearts. I also don't understand why her people are willing to help complete strangers. It just seems very convenient that they're, you know, like, sure, we'll help even though we're extremely low on resources. She gets kidnapped through the ocean, like off her balcony. The ocean comes up and yoinks her, and she gets taken by this wave. Somebody obviously from Moonling is manipulating the ocean, and she gets taken to a meeting, and apparently the kidnapping was not gentle, and it was so ungentle that it says the skin of her stomach was scraped clean, which is a weird sentence. I think it meant like scraped clean off her body, but I don't know, saying scraped clean just, it doesn't really doesn't really, it just doesn't really make sense. Someone touches her at this meeting of, obviously it's the rebels who have kidnapped her. They touch her and her power, of what kind, I don't know, explodes out of her without her control, sends people flying back. They're in a cave. One person gets like impaled on a stalactite. So she escapes and Oro finds her, and immediately what does he say? It's just like the new phrase that everybody's obsessed with that's selling books. Who did this to you? And that's not the last time we're going to hear this in this book, much to my chagrin. And anyone who was involved, he says, in kidnapping her and scraping the stomach skin clean will be strung across the cliffs in the Bay of Teeth. It was a torturous death. Sea creatures as big as entire parts of the castle lived there, and the waters so deep it was rumored no one had ever seen their bottom. This is a good example of how Alex Astor doesn't really know how to describe things in a way that sounds normal. So like, sea creatures as big as parts of the castle. So only parts of the castle? How huge is the castle? How huge are the parts? We couldn't find anything else that we could compare them to. And then water so deep it was rumored no one had ever seen their bottom. I mean, isn't that how like the entire ocean surrounding Lightlark is? I just assumed that it was just like the ocean. It's very deep. You can't see the bottom. What's different about the ocean in the Bay of Teeth versus the ocean surrounding the Bay of Teeth? You know what I mean? I don't know. This is just weird writing. She has flashbacks to her and Grimm meeting. So this is going to be like a big thing, is like the remembering of her time with Grimm. So it says that she has a flashback of her accidentally portaling using her star stick, which she already had, which I thought she was given by Celeste. Apparently she had already had it, but Celeste told her that it was a starling relic, I thought. And then she was, so I don't understand why she thought it was a starling relic if it's a nightshade relic, which I don't know. That it just seems, the star stick is a huge fucking plot hole for me. She portals into Nightshade for the first time. She meets Grimm, she stabs him, and then she leaves. And then he later finds her in Wildling Realm and like holds it's like the dagger to the throat scene, because we're writing like an enemies to lovers for them, versus Oro and her where we wrote a something to, I think I love you, but I can't describe what love is. We then have a training montage and she learns to use her earth powers and has rocks being hurled at her, and it says one hits her shoulder and says it was sure to leave a bruise that looks like a storm cloud, which is just another example of very like unpolished imagery by this author. Isla's like, I can't believe you like me, Oro, I thought you hated me. And I'm like, yeah, or at least, you know, felt very ambivalent towards you, because there certainly wasn't any chemistry written, but okay. I thought that, again, he just felt like sort of like a mentor towards her, but mostly just ambivalent and annoyed. So at the end when it's like she loves both of them, him and Grimm, I was like, yeah, like a mentor, right? Like a mentor, because it had all of the romantic chemistry of Luke Skywalker and Rey. So Oro is like, says he loves her but without saying it, and is like, I like everything about you, which is weird because I still feel like they don't know each other at all, so I don't know what to do with that. But where it comes to Grimm, she just hates him, and I don't understand why. She hates him based on the assumption that he is attacking Lightlark because he wants to attack Lightlark because he wants her. I don't get it. We have training montage after training montage. Again, Enya feels like Edna Mode. Oro is friends with her, so he feels very much like Mr. Incredible, and she's Edna Mode who knows everything and is very eccentric. Within 9 minutes of like deciding we need to go talk to Enya and meeting Enya, like within 9 minutes of that chapter, she said, okay, I know everything that Wildling Realm needs. They need plant infrastructure, and Oro has the answer to who can help with that, and we get introduced, and then she immediately knows what to do, and we head there, and then Isla realizes, oh, I never prepared my people for visitors. Bitch, you didn't even prepare me. Why are we speeding through this? So I felt nothing about this book up till now, other than this is silly. And then that whole, you know, oh, we're teaching these savage people how to prepare meat because all they've eaten up to this point is human hearts. That's when I just felt very icked out. So yikes. So we're at 25% in, right? And she's just now starting to ask about her mom because her mom had a bonded and she doesn't. And she expresses almost disappointment that Lynx the black leopard chose her out of obligation and not fondness. And I'm like, isn't that the point of taking a bonded? You go into the forest, you shoot an animal with an arrow, and it feels like it is compelled to bond with you. Of course it's obligation and not fondness. No shit. It's all very weird, and if it's not weird, it's convenient, because whenever she gets hurt her wildling elixir fixes it. What are the limits of this? I have no idea. How are they not out by now? How did that not fix the starvation issue? Okay, so the rebels, the rebellion, which like comes and goes willy-nilly, was spotted, and it turns out there's crypts under Lightlark, and on the east part of the island there's creatures in the crypts, and I'm like, well, that would have been a better plot. So then she walks into Starling Castle, the people that she was coronated and is now in charge of, and it says everyone looks so young, only a few dozen look to be her age. And I'm like, wait, doesn't Oro look her age despite being 600? And Cleo and Grimm and Azul and Celeste? And that's how Celeste got away with passing herself off as Celeste when she was really Aurora, the 600-year-old ruler who caused the curse in the first place. I thought the point was that everyone was like 600 years old but did look Isla's age. What are you talking about? She asked them finally, we're 25% in now. She's already been coronated their ruler, and it's like she's asking, what do you guys need? What do you mean? What do you mean? Why are you asking that now? Why didn't you ask that first and foremost? And they're like, right now we need you to stay alive. And I'm like, I mean, yes, you need her to stay alive, but that's it. That's really it. You don't have an overabundance of children compared to adults because of the way that the curse was set up for starlings. Like, you don't need help with that. You don't need babysitters. Y'all don't want to ask for a democratic government process from her, which she's likely to give you because she's so nice. I don't get it. I don't know how that's the only thing you have to ask from her, but okay. And they live in a crappy living situation. She had people portal into Wildling Realm to fix their situation, but she can't move people from one part of Lightlark to the other to fix the starlings living situation. I don't fucking get it. Also, there's ghosts. Ghosts. We have oracles, we have ghosts. We had sirens brought up in the last book but never seen. You've got creatures in the Bay of Teeth. There's so much. We're doing way too much. There are ghosts and there are the creatures that live in the crypts, so I think they do need help, and I don't know why they're not asking. Then we move on to Oro and Isla talking about their feelings for each other again. How is it possible they both knew they loved each other but they hadn't even kissed? I can tell you, it's because we're prolonging that in order to make this love triangle a legitimate thing when it's not a legitimate thing. You're right. By all accounts, it doesn't make any sense that they love each other, but at all, honestly. But all right, why haven't they kissed? I suspect it's because Alex Astor made a love triangle and doesn't know how else to keep it interesting for the audience other than to prolong them touching. And so Isla eventually gets upset about this and is like, why don't you want me? And he's like, I do, but you're not sleeping because you don't sleep so that you don't have to have memories of Grimm and you together. And so he moves her into his room and he moves out because for some reason, if she sleeps in his room, she doesn't have memories of Grimm. I don't know. And so they're talking about their feelings again, and she says, ask me if I love Grimm. And she says no and says, I love you. And he knows that it's true because he has that flair where he can tell if she's lying or not. And she's like, I love you even though you've never taken me on a date. And I'm like, there's dates in this world? They do that here? They fool around, but of course it's not P and V sex because we are saving that for the next book. We treat that like the end-all, ultimate, end-all, be-all of sex. I wish there were more books like Mary and Hayes where that's not the end-all, be-all of sex. She calls Oro her pocket of peace, her slice of sunlight, and I don't know why we're doing alliterations, but okay. However, this did make me remember, wait a second, isn't Isla a singer? She was in the first book. Where did that go? Out the window, I guess. Maybe it got stolen out her window just like she did by that moonling person. There's like a party. Grimm sends a message to them saying, I'm gonna destroy Lightlark in 30 days because Grimm is being set up as a cheap and lazy villain in the most cheap and lazy way possible. And Isla tells mean girl Cleo, why don't we work together? What happened at the centennial that you didn't attend? And Cleo's like, how dare you ask me that? Which is weird. Like, what do you mean how dare she ask her that? Why? But okay. And Cleo ends up like right after this, like a day after this, on Isla's balcony and starts talking without even saying hello. Just starts talking to Isla saying, it was a night just like this, with a full moon, the worst night of my life. And Isla responds by saying to her, what do you want? Clearly she is here to give you the answers that you just asked for the day prior. The question that makes sense to ask here is, what changed your mind? Why are you suddenly willing to tell me things now when yesterday you told me how dare I ask them? But this neither gets asked nor answered because nothing in this book makes any sense. Cleo's like, I'm here to help you. Isla's like, you tried to kill me in the last book. Cleo says, if I wanted to kill you, you'd already be dead. So it turns out Cleo had a son who died. She didn't want to attend a certain centennial because the curse on moonlings was well managed by then, which brings me back to the problem with book 1. The curses make no sense. Why are some of them harsher than the others? And Cleo's like, by the way, the oracle is awake. So So Isla goes to go see the Oracle, and they witness Cleo and the Moonlings dip. Like, they dip to go, and they just assume, like, oh, she's gonna go join Nightshade. Okay. She goes to Moon Isle. Shit there is melting. She talks to the Oracle. Apparently, Cleo wounded the Oracle, which this never gets answered as to why Cleo would do such a thing. The Oracle's like, the answers are in Isla's dreams, which, yeah, no shit. We're 40% in now, and I have no idea why Grimm wants to kill everyone and take over Lightlark. Assumedly, the Drex are not in his control, or Isla's right and he's just coming after them because he's obsessed with her, which is obviously not true. We get another flashback to before book 1. She needs to, she's setting herself up for the Centennial, so she's going to get those skin gloves we talked about from book 1. She goes to the night market in Nightshade. She draws a puddle of stars, goes to look for the gloves, and comes across NIGHTBANE, which is a plant that takes away all pain. I guess it's like heroin. It's made really obvious that Nightshade is like a terrible place. There's like a cauldron of boiling blood. Some guy tries to scalp her for her wildling hair, so it just goes to show that she is in fact like perceived as wildling just by looking at her. She stabs him, she runs from Nightshade guards. Grimm shows up, arrests her, takes her star stick, and then he's like, we can make a deal. I need a particular sword. I forgot up to this point that Grimm has a portaling flare, and I don't know why Isla hasn't just told everybody like, hey, Grimm can portal anywhere he wants all the time. Why don't we just ask him to portal here and have a conversation with us? But no, we don't do that, because having a conversation would make the entire plot of this book pointless. Then we talk about the fact that Isla has Nightshade powers, which up to this point I had forgotten all about, and I have a sneaking suspicion that so did the editor of this book. So they tell her, use your shadow powers, kill this tree, and make something new with it. And it says that the power, using the shadow power, was like gulping down water after a day in the desert. And I'm like, is there a desert in this world at all? And because I'm not seeing one on the map, and Isla certainly hasn't been there, considering her upbringing was mostly spent either in her bedroom, in Starling Realm, hanging out with Celeste, or in Nightshade with Oro. And I don't think any of those places have a desert. It would make more sense to say using this power was like quenching a long-held thirst. After a day of being cast into the jungle by Poppy and Tara with no resources for training, like link it back to something we actually know she experienced. Isla keeps having this vision with like death and destruction, and Grimm's there, and in one of the versions of the vision, Grimm kills her. This will be important later. There's a flashback. A fellow wildling has captured her and is like, we need to eat her heart. We haven't had any hearts in a while. And in her head, she's like, well, sure, my people have been weakening because I was born powerless, but Poppy and Tara said they have plenty of hearts. And I'm like, hold up. From where have they been getting the hearts? I've been asking this for 1.5 books. Where are they getting the damn hearts? Why don't they eat each other's hearts? If they're getting hearts from like other realms, then isn't that going to start a war? Why isn't that being dealt with? And also, she did have power. She had powers. They were just dampened. So is it that her powers didn't exist and that's why her people were cursed and her people were suffering? Or was it that her powers being dampened caused the suffering of her people? I don't get it. And also, she's immune to curses. Like, you find this out later. So shouldn't it be that since she's immune to curses, her entire people should have been immune to curses? Isn't that how this works? I don't get it. So they almost carve out her heart, but she gets free and she star sticks herself out of there. So this scene seemingly confirms that these people, who are an allegory for indigenous Latin American folks, I believe, are cannibals, which is not a stereotype you want to write, but that scene right there just confirmed it. Turns out she had portaled herself to Grimm's room, and he asks, who am I killing tonight? I'm like, y'all don't even know each other. What the fuck are you talking about? Which is just another version of who did this to you. And unfortunately, this is the second time, but not the last time we're going to hear this. But last time we saw it from the other guy in the love triangle. He gives her a drink, non-alcoholic. Do you want to guess what it is? It's hot chocolate, because this is Sarah J. Maas, ACOTAR fanfic adjacent, and he would not be Rhysand if he did not provide her with chocolate. But it says she's had it before, and this is what I want to point out, from the chefs in Wildling Palace. The chefs in Wildling Palace. The chefs in Wildling Palace. There's chefs there, but you needed chefs to be brought from Lightlark to teach you how to cook meat properly. The plot holes. I just star-sticked open a plot hole, didn't I? She's like, shouldn't you give me NIGHTBANE? And he's like, no, never take NIGHTBANE. It's a drug. It makes you feel good, but it kills you slowly. So it's like heroin. I don't know. I don't know a lot about hard drugs. In the flashbacks, it says that Grimm tells her that the star stick is his relic. So a nightshade relic and not a Starling starling relic like Celeste told her. And I don't understand how this wasn't a red flag that Celeste lied to her. That's kind of a huge thing for Celeste to lie about. Also, if it's not a starling relic, then why is it a puddle of stars? And not, if it's a nightshade relic, why isn't it a puddle of night? I'm so confused. He starts training her because, you know, she's using his relic. No conversation about how she got it or why she thinks it's a starling relic or why that's suspicious as hell. It's just saying he's training her. With what? Calcified shadows. And I'm like, why didn't we just use tangible or hardened? Doesn't calcified have a very particular meaning? All right, whatever. She goes to a part of Lightlark in Starling Isle that she has not been before. She and her 2 guards are attacked by a giant snake, and Isla sends thorns at it. Then the snake changes into a woman wearing a snake skin dress. Mommy. And Isla's like, a person changing into a snake? That's impossible power. Really? That's impossible? That's too far-fetched in this world? Okay. And Isla is disgusted because these things are former wildling beings and they eat people, including children. And I'm like, again, who were your people eating the hearts of, including your own fucking guardians? Okay, that just, all right, sure. And they're having these conversations about Grimm wiping out Lightlark again and again and again, making a lot of assumptions. And again, this just goes back to how did they conveniently forget that he was holding back something worse that she couldn't possibly imagine. Somebody says, if Grimm wipes out Lightlark, what is to stop him from taking out the Skyling Newland as well? For all we know, he wants to wipe away the world. In a flashback, we learn about the Drex from Grimm and Isla, right? So at this point, we should say, okay, if Isla learns about the Drex and then why wouldn't she assume that maybe Grimm is trying to stop the Drex from coming through Lightlark further, but instead we just assume that he wants to take over Lightlark. We just assume he's being a bad boy. I have 10 more pages of notes and I am honestly like sick to death of ripping apart this piece by piece and talking about everything that's wrong with it. Like I have 10 more pages of highlighted stuff and I just can't take it anymore. So I'm just going to tell you what happens, okay? I'm just gonna wrap this sucker up. Isla and Oro continue the way they have been the whole time. Then it turns out that Isla, the visions that she was having of Grimm killing her, that was not true. What had actually happened was that her and Grimm stopped talking because she felt like he manipulated her when he really, in my opinion, did not. And then he comes and takes her star stake from her. Then she figures out that she's in love with him because she can tap into his powers, because if you're in love with somebody, it forms a bond and you can use their power. But again, didn't Azul say that if you do that, it takes your life force? I don't know. Everything's made up and the points don't matter. Grimm told her about the Drex. He told her they were a problem to his people, although whether or not he cares about his people is sort of like willy-nilly, because he just like massacres an entire room of dudes for her at one point, and again is like, which one of them hurt you? Because you know the who did this to you thing is like super sexy, so we have to do it 3 times in the same book. Kill me. They form a bond over a series of months. They even go to see a hot air balloon thing happening in Skyling Realm together in disguise. And of course, the hot air balloon that they pick is the one that is blue and shaped like an egg, because we have to throw some egg shit in here because it wouldn't be Lightlark without eggs, would it? She finds out that some of her friends and her subjects in Starling are part of the rebellion group, and then the rebellion group just sort of falls off at the end. Grimm has made it very obvious through memories that he is just trying to protect his people from the Drex, and he goes to help them. Isla shows up there, and unfortunately, because she's got shadow powers and she has no control over them, and there's a lot of talking about like, if you use emotion to use your power, then you don't have control over it, which is just really lazy writing. She accidentally overuses her power and she killed a bunch of Nightshade kids, so that's the thing she was remembering, and it took so much power out of her that it killed her. Well, Grimm brought her back by forming some sort of bond between them so that their life forces are tied together, so if one of them dies, the other dies. And also, they got married, because at the end of the book, Grimm is like, get away from my wife, to Oro. So, okay. And also, Tara, one of her former guardians, who's a dick for no reason, just, you know, to make a villain happen because we needed a villain slot to fill. Isla goes to Wildling Realms, Hall of Mirrors or whatever, and has been trying to like access power there. And Tara shows up and it's like, wow, how'd you get here? Which is just unanswered questions that I assume we're gonna answer in the next book, but they're not gonna be fulfilling answers. And Tara says to her, like, oh, thanks for providing us a way back. And you find out that Lightlark is a miniature world, an offshoot of another place that all of these people came from originally. And I'm like, oh, so we're doing more retconning. Got it. Okay. And they're all trying to go back there, especially Cleo. Remember her? Because she wants to go back to the original world they came from because she thinks that she can raise her son from the dead there. And so the book ends with Isla telling Oro, I have to go with Grimm. I love you, but I love him too. And the last line is like, and Oro, because he could sense lies, knew that she was telling the truth. And I'm like, great. Okay, well that was convoluted. It's just silly. It's just silly writing. It makes no sense. The entire book hinges on pretending that we never had the conversation that Grimm was holding back something worse. Obviously the Drecks are coming from like the other world that they opened a portal and came to, and they have to like seal that. I don't know what to tell you. It's just silly goose business. Just silly goose business all around. It's just a nonsense, ridiculous, stupid plot that hinges on retconning an entire 2 conversations we had in the last book. So that's it. That's Nightbane. Grimm and Isla were married all along. They are married. Marriage brings us together. So that's it. I assume that we'll continue this love triangle. And then eventually it says that she has to kill one of them. So that's cool. Honestly, I hope they all die. They're all stupid. So that was Nightbane. That was it, and that's how it ends, and it's really stupid. Okay? All right. Thanks for being here. Sorry I had to cut this short, but I can't do 10 pages of highlights of just saying how stupid every single line is. No, not today. I can't do it. It's too long. So I'll see you for the next book. All right. I'm gonna go drink. Bye. Hi, it's me. It's the end of the video, so I have to do thank you for being a friend to my Therapy Bills patrons, and those are Alexander, Brittany Bobitney, Cami, Chris, Des Roberts, DJ Rocktopus, Ellie, Emperor's New Blues, Aaron, Eric, Jack and Jill, John E, Heleno K, Casey McKenzie, Kate W, Caitlin M, Quinn, Lady Kittybug, Lex, Night Owl Reader, Alice, Rain, Reese, SJ, Samar, Scarlet, Shiny, and SMK. Thank you all so much for being a friend. Oh my gosh, I missed one, and it's Peggy, who changed her name to the epic feminist side-eye of Carlos. I cannot. I can't. And last but not least, before I go to say thank you for being a friend to my Potato Starch Marxist patrons. Hello, comrades, and they are AM Angel, Amanda, Andy, Angelica, Anita, Artie the Ninth, Ashley H, Ava, Ballads and Bookends, Beck, Blythe, Bookish Bats, Bookish Brain Rot, Bree, Caitlin, Cardinal Ginger, Carlin, Casper, Catherine, Kathy, Chris, CJ, Cole, Colleen, Corwin, Corey, Darren, Deborah, Dex, Diet Goth, Dorian, Dorothea, Ebby, Ember, Emerald Dodge, Emily A, Emily L, Emma, Aaron, Ezra, Hannah C, Hannah T, Harpy Kuro, Haley, Ilianaka, India Inks, JM Tennant, Jay is on Olympus, JT, Jen Michelle, Jenny G, Jess Burler, Jessa Sue, Jillian, Jojo Bookish, Jess Pugsley, Kaylee, Kat, Catherine, Katie, Katya, Kayala, Kendra, Kylie, Laughing Cat Dog, Laura, Lazarus Ray, Library of Scars, Lisa B, LP, Lou Siri, Lustful Octopus, Martin, Madison, Marcella, Marquita, Malara, MK Books, Molly, James, Nat, Natalie, Never, Nicole G, Nicole R, Nyan Binary, Paige P, Penny Chilling, Foxglove, Pixel Stars, Rachel B, Rat Sarah, Reba, Rebecca, Rivi, Robin, Rosie, Rowan, Sokoria, Sadie, Samantha M, Sarah C, Sarah H, Sarah the Bear, Shamed, Shannon, Sheen Onion, Sean, Talia, 3 Old Dogs, Tiana, Tina, Toast, Trashcan Teddy, Tito Phoenix, and Writer A. Thank you all so much for being a friend.